Hi, how you doing? Welcome to the Soft Spot. Today I wanted to talk about something that I see as a trend around the internet, and it's about like divine feminine energy and what else is it called on the internet? It's this whole like art of seduction thing geared towards women. I'm seeing a shift. This stuff used to be geared toward men, where it's about manipulating women in order to get them to sleep with them or to partner them or to, go on a date with them. But I'm seeing a shift now, and it's more geared toward women when it comes to the art of seduction, quote unquote. And I'm not going to tell you what to do, but this is just a part of the podcast where I like to help equip you in some way for the rest of your day in a way that I think is balanced and insightful. So that's what I'm going to aim to do. What I do think is that a lot of people, when they are taken advantage of, find someone to blame. And I think the person they blame is themselves most of all. I think what happens is really sensitive people who really desire a romantic connection or even platonic connection. I think that when you really desire those things, you're more susceptible to being extremely hurt when the things that you want don't pan out. Though I understand that plight, I understand that pain, I understand the notion that of being promised something if you behaved well, of being promised an outcome, a partnership, a friendship, if you did everything quote unquote right, if you were empathetic enough, if you were generous enough, if you made space for them, and still not getting that return of the investment. I hate to call it an investment in, economic terms, but that's essentially what it is, an emotional investment in people. I understand why not getting that return can be disappointing and painful and even, mindset shifting in a way, life altering. But I always caution finding ways to blame ourselves for the way that people treat us. I think a lot of autistic people specifically are used to being taken advantage of, are used to being sold a fantasy that if they do something well enough, then someone will choose them. But that's not how it works. And the worst part of that is not only is that not how it works, some people will take advantage of empathy, of that kindness, of that earnestness, and turn it into something really cynical. And that I think happens is autistic people get tired of it. We get tired of being used. We get tired of our earnestness being taken advantage of. And we assume that in order to avoid, we at the end of the day, we conclude that in order to avoid those kinds of disappointments, we have to overcorrect. And that's what I think this is. I think this new wave of show them you don't care so that they'll actually approach you. Show them you don't want them, ice them out, be emotionally avoidant so that they will choose you, so that they will know that you're not someone to mess with. I think that is overcorrection. And I'm not going to lie, I used to be in the camp of, don't don't flatter a man ever. I used to be in that camp. And I still don't think, this is just getting into my personal dating thoughts, which I'm not going to expel right now, but generally, I do still think that men have a lot to prove when it comes to partnering women. I think men have a lot more to prove than women. I think men have to prove that they are safe, the system we're in. I think that the onus is on men to prove that they actually want you and not just, superficial things. I think the onus actually is on men in romantic relationships. I do. And in heterosexual dynamics, I do think that's true. Sorry, it's the one price you have to pay for the patriarchy. I'm sorry. That being said, I don't think it is fair to punish someone because somebody else hurt you. And I think this kind of advice of withhold affection, withhold empathy and interest, I think that is coming from a place of trauma. I do not think that is coming from a place of power. And power is really interesting, the concept of power, because I've been studying power for years now. At this point, I could write a book. Maybe I will. But when we're talking about institutional power, when we're talking about interpersonal dynamics, these things don't exist in a vacuum. They intersect often. That being said, if I walk around like at any point someone is going to throw me off my game, at any point a man can throw me off my game, that's not moving from a place of power. That's moving from a place of fear. And all of this kind of advice that's like, don't show them you care, that's from fear. Because who I actually am is someone who cares about other people, and everything that I do emulates that. And so if I behave in a way that is the complete opposite of who I am, that is sacrificing who I am because somebody hurt me. Just plain and simple. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but what I see is a lot of people who have been hurt telling each other to care less when that is not something that is natural to them. I'm not saying everything is natural is correct or useful or helpful, but why should I change who I am because somebody was unkind to me? Yes, boundaries are important, but I think the goal for an autistic person when we date or when we pursue friendships isn't to do something that is completely the opposite of what we do. I think what we would do in our wholeness. I think the goal is to figure out what feels good to us. Figure out what is a comfortable level of boundary setting, how you like to feel when you go out on a date, how you like to feel around your friends, what it feels like in your body to make certain decisions around your relationships. I think that's the goal. Because what these people are saying out here, it's probably not going to work for us. It's probably not going to work for us because we're not neurotypical. We don't think the way that neurotypical people think. And odds are the person we're going to attract isn't going to think that way either. The goal isn't to battle up, gear up for war, even though it can feel that way when pursuing these relationships. The goal is to feel as much like ourselves as we possibly can throughout the process. Is to feel like ourselves and make sure every decision we make is in line with who that is. And frankly, I'm needy and I need the person to know up front that I'm needy. And if they can't handle it, they have to go. I like to be treated well. I like to be courted. I like to know that I matter to you. And that needs to be an expectation from the jump. That's how I run my business. That's how I go about my business. You go about your business the way you need to, boo. But all I know is the way that I go about my business is not going to be the neurotypical way. It was never going to work that way. It was the mind games, the be coy, the don't let him know that you're upset. That was never going to work for me. I was always going to communicate my concerns up front. I was always going to tell someone when something they did upset me. That was always who I was going to be. It didn't start out that way, and girl, it took us a long time to get here. But I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're here, though. So I think what's important to wrap it up for this little mini segment that I do, and I'm trying to think of if I want to start doing these every day just to give you a little something, because I'm a habit person, and if I don't do it every day, I'm probably not going to be consistent with it. So, but what I've learned is my dating life and the way I go about my relationships is going to be specific to me. And that is the best thing that I can do for myself. And that is the best mindset that I can approach these things with. The second you start thinking about what should be done, what is normal, that's when you start acting outside of yourself. So I don't know if that kind of content has affected anyone else in a similar way, but it's definitely affected me. And if anything, it's shown me that I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. So I hope you continue to do what's best for you. All right, that's all I have for you. You have a good commute, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is where you are at. Be blessed. Stay weird. Bye-bye.